Hello there and welcome back to the channel and the continuation of the Skin Job series from Battlestar Galactica, and we're finally onto them, the final 5. If you like this channel and this video and anything you see on this channel, please consider giving it a like, share, subscribe, and also check out my other channels which are linked in the description below. And for shameless self-promotion and for a change, this video is sponsored by me and my other channels, which we'll get to later in the video. See how that goes. With all that said, let's get into Samuel T. Anders. Okay, so this could turn into a long one, so we're going to compartmentalize. I'm not going to go over his entire very epic life story episode by episode. We'll try to compartmentalize it into the important periods of his life, and that starts with his birth. He was born on Earth, not this one, the other one, the first Earth. The Earth was the 13th tribe of men from the dying world of Kobol. 12 of those colonies, of course, would go on to become the 12 colonies, Caprica, Tauron, etc. But Earth was the colony created by the Cylons that left Kobol. But, just like what happened on Kobol and on the colonies, it all happened before and it all happened again. After they evolved, should I say, to the point where they could biologically reproduce, they abandoned resurrection. They also abandoned any mechanical form of Cylon, but later would re-engineer and create new ones, sentient mechanical Cylons, which they treated as second-class citizens, and the inevitable happened, they revolted. But Anders and 4 others were guided by, shall we call them, angels, and told of what was going to happen. Rather than try to prevent it, because they couldn't, they recreated resurrection, built it into a ship that they kept in orbit, and when the nuclear war kicked off, royally, they were killed on the surface, but they resurrected up on the ship and they escaped. But these Cylons lacked FTL, unlike the colonies. They only had relativistic capability. This basically translated to the ship moved in normal space very fast, so fast that time moved differently on the ship to the rest of the universe around it. So a year for them could have been 10 years in normal space. So for them, only a relatively short period of time went by, but 2,000 years actually passed in normal space for them to reach the colonies, and they found the colonies were already at war with their newly created Cylons. Anders and the others struck a deal with the Cylons. They would help them create organic human form Cylons in exchange for them stopping the war. They would also teach them how to create resurrection. The Cylons agreed. They would then go on to create the first of the human form Cylons, the Ones, and then the others would follow. The basic story here is the Ones didn't like the new Cylon culture. They hated humanity, they hated what they were. They revolted, killed their creators and imprisoned them or boxed them until they came up with a plan what to do. They suppressed the memories of the others and turned the 5 into sleeper agents and sent back to the colonies just before the war was going to start. Anders was given false memories like other sleeper agents, and he would become a pyramid player for the Caprica Buccaneers, a very, very famous, well-paid athlete. Hardly surprising, he was a cybernetic superhuman. Or super Cylon. Anyway, after the nuclear holocaust of the Cylon War, he became a revolutionary, a rebel fighter, fighting to try and get rid of the Cylons. His basic plan was simple. Kill the Cylons enough times that they keep resurrecting, that it becomes more and more painful, that being there is more trouble than it's worth. And they just leave. That was his hope. Or simply revenge. What else are you going to do when your entire civilization's been destroyed? Although unbeknownst to him, several members of his cell were actually Cylons. But anyway, they eventually were rescued by the colonial fleet, or what was left of it, and he became romantically involved with Starbuck, or otherwise known as Kara Thrace. The two would later marry, but their relationship was always strained for various reasons. For example, Kara was really secretly in love with Apollo, things of this nature. Now, eventually, on New Caprica, he would again become a revolutionary, fighting against the Cylons there. Later, he would become an enlisted officer in the colonial fleet. He would even be on Tom Zarek's little circle of officers and people who were there to judge all the Cylon collaborators, but he left the council, well, the circle rather, after the first 6 executions because he had no taste for revenge. But his wife replaced him, something he objected to, which put further strain on their relationship. Their relationship would never, from that point on, ever be resolved. And Kara would seemingly die later, before they had any real chance to reconcile. He would, as a result of this, become a pilot in exchange after becoming quite alcoholic for a little while. Now, it was during his time as a pilot that things really kicked off. During an engagement with a Cylon raider, his weapons jammed. The Cylon raider had him dead to rights, but it scanned him and it recognized what it was. Now, the Cylon raiders were not exactly fully sentient, but they weren't stupid. They were sort of like a highly evolved animal from a Cylon or human point of view. It recognized him as a Cylon. It may not have known why he was a Cylon or what Cylon he was, but it knew. And it knew that it had to stop, so it told all the other raiders. They all buggered off, went back to the ship, and the raid ships then jumped away, and there was nothing any of the Cylons on board them could do to stop it. This was the first stirrings of what would become the Cylon Civil War. The colonial fleet had no idea why the Cylons had stopped their attack when they were winning, but they did, and they were all able to escape. Him and 3 of the other, then, remaining Cylons began to hear a piece of music playing that only they could hear. Like it was coming from in the walls. It was coming from nowhere in particular, but it was guiding them somewhere. And eventually it was like a switch went off and they all realized that they were Cylons. When one of them decided that their loyalty stayed with the fleet and with who they were before all of this, that's what the others followed him. Although he had already by this point begun a relationship with one of the others, which is a besides the point storyline for now, but basically it had ramifications later, but anyway, when Kara Thrace returned and was believed to be a Cylon, he told her that whether she was a Cylon or not, bear in mind secretly he knew he was a Cylon, he would still love her and it didn't matter to him, but she told him that if she ever found out he was a Cylon, she'd have killed him instantly without any hesitation. That simple for her, at least at that time anyway. Later, Anders would be seriously injured and left in a virtually vegetative state. Now, I know I'm missing a little bit of his storyline out here, but we're skipping ahead to the key points. And in this state, he didn't resurrect. He was kind of just who he was, because by this point the resurrection had been destroyed. He couldn't resurrect, but he was now almost like one of the pilots of the base stars, which, for the life of me, I've completely forgot what they were called. The hybrids. There we go. He was basically one of them, is what it had reduced him to. And although he had never regained his full memories, as he never resurrected, unlike one of the other Final 5 who did regain all of its memories, he never did. So he never really knew the person that he was on Earth. But he did make it all the way to Earth, and his final act was basically, even in his state, to tell the woman he loved that he'd see her on the other side. The rest of the colonial fleet was slaved to his mind, and he navigated it into the Sol Star at the center of the new system of the new Earth that they had discovered. There was no chance for him to be healed. His only hope was to undergo resurrection to get a new body, but that was no longer an option, and medically he couldn't be treated. His existing body was too badly damaged, and especially with the humans and the Cylons choosing to abandon their technology and go to Earth, there was not going to be any ability to care for him. I suppose the other option is we could have gone with the Centurions, but I don't think they wanted him, so there we have it. The life of Samuel T. Anders. Pyramid player, revolutionary, pilot, colonial fleet officer, hero of 2 empires in a sense. And with that, I'm going to plug my other channels. They are linked in the description below. They are Nerd World Films, which is dedicated to all things movie. It has a variety of different series on there. It's quite similar to this channel, but it tackles everything's movies. I cover different movie vehicles. I do discussions on various films that I like. I have slowly, very, very, very slowly been doing a Star Trek movie series breakdown. There are also some other biographies and things of that nature on there, as well as some Devil's Advocate videos that I think are probably the most popular videos on that channel, where I take a popular sci-fi or horror character or general character I like, and I twist it around to make them sympathetic or just treat them as a real person instead of a fictional one. The next channel is Nerd World History. History is one of my other passions. I absolutely love history. And although I'm not a historian, I do have a great love for it, and that channel is entirely dedicated to history. The main area of focus for history for me is prehistory, and as I'm British, I tend to look at British or at least European prehistory, and I currently have a very extensive series going on breaking down every Celtic tribe that existed in Britannia before the Romans turned up, and I'm about halfway through that series as of the making of this video. The last channel is the newest one, which currently only does have 3 videos on again as they upload this one, although there is another one coming in the next few days on Edmund Kemper, and that is Nerd World Order, which is all things crime, law enforcement, and generally bad and wrong. And it is still a small and young channel compared to this one, but it's another area of macabre interest for me, and I thought I'd explore it as it didn't really fit into any of the others. So I did initially consider integrating those videos with the history channel. They don't really fit because they're biographic and, you know, bugger it. I thought, true, I like things ordered, hence Nerd World Order. I like everything in a nice little box, ticked, and saying it's what it is, rather than mixing it and hybridizing it with other things. And those are my other channels. Check them out. If you like them, like, share, subscribe over there, and tell me in the comments of whichever video you watched that you came here from this channel, because I'm curious now if anyone does. With all that said, if you made it all the way to the end of the video and my shameless self-promotion, thank you for watching. And there are, of course, more of these videos coming very soon. And hopefully sooner than I've been able to pump these videos out recently. But with all that said, bye-bye.